Good morning. It is a little bit before 7 a.m. here in Chicago on Sunday. Today, I'll be racing my Virtual Shamrock Shuffle 8K. We've got beautiful weather. Highs and temps right now are just below 40 degrees, so a little on the chilly side, but great for racing.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? We are back home now. I thought for today's race recap we would try something a little bit different than what I normally do. Normally I do a race, then I go home, I relax, I interact with people on Instagram and on Strava and on Twitter and all that stuff, and then I make like the race recap video like the following day. Today what I want to do is try to make that as short of a time as possible and kind of give you the real-time view of kind of what I'm thinking. Now, of course, I've already run the 8K time trial, and then did a 2.5 mile cool down, took a shower, walked the dog, then took a shower and all that. But I'm trying to make it as close to like getting my real-time thoughts as possible. I haven't looked at any of the numbers other than like the base number, which is 8K or 5 miles, 32:05, which puts me a little bit behind my PR of, I guess, 2 Shamrock Shuffles ago or 2 years ago. So feel good about it, not great. A little bit disappointed, to be honest, but let's take a look at the actual numbers. On my watch, I've disabled a long time ago mile splits, so I don't even know what the mile splits are, so we'll take a look at that. Before we do, I have a feeling that what happened was, my take of it, is that I went out, the original race plan was go out super slow, a slow first mile, 20-minute 5K pace for miles 2 and 3, and then squeeze down for miles 4 and 5. I think what actually happened was I went out way too fast, like the first half mile, panicked for the second part of the first mile. Miles 2 and 3 were all over the place, and miles 4 and 5 maybe started squeezing down, but I think we're still all over the place. So I think the one thing we're gonna see here is my prediction is that my pacing is just garbage. So let's take a look at the actual numbers now. So I'm gonna head over to Polar Flow, and this is my first time looking at any of the splits. So looking at them, it looks like, let's look at the overall. We did 5 miles, 5.00 miles, 173 beats per minute on average. So a little bit more than threshold. So that's, I think, about right as far as like heart rate exertion. Average power is 283 watts. I think for the stride prediction for me said that I should be running at about 287, I think, for 8K. So I feel like, pretty close. Probably could have worked a little bit harder. I felt like I worked pretty hard. An average pace was 6:24 minutes per mile. Average pace with a max of 4:51. I'm betting you that I hit that like in the first 30 seconds. And then So average cadence 95 steps per minute or 190. That's kind of how most people see it. So let's take a look at it. Just looking at it briefly from these graphs, it looks like the heart rate was pretty spot on, like right about where I wanted it to be. And then the pacing, yeah, look at this pacing. That's this blue graph here. Yeah, that like peak, definitely hit that in the first like 30 seconds really early. And then, you know, disappointing right in this middle section. This is where I lost a lot of time, miles like 2 and 3, and then miles 4 and 5, you know, picking it up. I don't know what happened here really. Oh, you know what? At the end, I turned around. I didn't know how far this course was going to go, like the way I had set it up. And I hit a part where like there was just like a wall of wind. And so I turned around and did like a little hairpin turn. So that's what's going on with that. And then I circled back a little bit. I wanted to just do like a point to point. I tried to get a little bit cute with the wind and get a tailwind. It ended up being backwards, where I was actually running into what seemed like nothing that's gonna kind of explain any of the numbers, but mentally it felt like I was running into a headwind the entire time. But and at the end, this right here, I was just like, oh, this wind is crazy, and I was like, I'm struggling. So I turned it around, and that's what this little pace dip is right there. So looking at the power numbers, I'm again starting up way too hard and then going way too easy. The section here between these two color bands is 278, so I need to be above that for the most part. And yeah, in this section down here where I'm at 2 miles to 3.5 miles, that stretch, that part I definitely remember like zoning out a little bit in a bad way, like just kind of losing touch with the race. I feel like I was really missing not being in a real race at that time. I was like, I wish I had a pack where I could just kind of like slot in and run with them and not worry about pace and just follow like the shoulders and the feet in front of me. That's what I was really missing today. And that's when I really struggled. All right, so that's just the basic graphs. Let's look at the individual laps a little bit more specifically. So I'm going to split it into looking at each mile at a time. So the first mile, 6:14, so like way too fast. I was looking for like 6:40, 6:30 for that first mile. Average power 290, again too high. Hit too much of a power max. If I look at just that first mile too, yeah, I mean this is just all super crazy. I should have been like in the right at the cusp of this band, like this. I don't know, not like zone 4 here. That's where I should have been. And for a lot of it, for the first minute, I was way above it. Then I was in it for a little while, and then I dipped down. So yeah, pretty much kind of like what I was thinking I experienced. Second mile, not bad, better than I thought, 6:21, but I wanted that to be kind of 6:26, so I was a little fast on that one. And looking at that mile, I'm spending a little bit more time in the correct band, but I'm still fast. I'm still running that faster than I should be, and I'm exerting way more power than I should have been. So that's another like pacing mistake that I made, and that shows, and it bites me in the butt right in like the third mile. So here, this is where I start. Like I'm spending time past in this zone 3 or half this time. If you look at it over on this side here, it says 52% of this mile was in zone 3, which is kind of like 10K pace or half marathon pace. So like not really good here at all. And then the power number, it should have been squarely in this zone up here, zone 4, but I'm spending most of this time in zone 3. So that's where I'm basically like catching my breath from overdoing it, miles 1 and 2. All right, then we get to mile 4, and let's see, that's average power is 280, average pace is 628. Still slow. So, like I'm trying to squeeze down and kind of like make it a fast finish, but I'm still struggling. 45% of this time, I'm below the power that I should be putting out, and 50% of the time, I'm outside of the pace zone. Well, 5, 4, 3, yeah. 50% I'm out of the pace zone that I want to be in. Towards the end is when I'm like starting to do it a little bit better, right? So from here on in, that's where I'm starting to pick it up, but like, basically from like mile 3.5 to 4.5, it looks like that's when I just really died on this one. And then on mile 5, I'm spending 46 in the zone that I kind of wanted to be in for like this final mile. So good. And then 3% above 6 minutes per hour, right at that tail end. So feeling good about that. And then there's a little extra spot here, 1 extra second, because of when I just ended up stopping the watch. So those are the numbers overall. Like looking at these paces, 614, 621, 633, 628, 624. You know, like the numbers aren't bad. The numbers are kind of like what I was looking for, but like they're in the wrong spot. And so mile 3 should have been mile 1. Mile 4 should have been mile 2. You know, so like ultimately the average paces aren't completely off, but you know, having them in the wrong place, like getting out too fast, I think really set the bad tone for me for the rest of this race. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about in that. Yeah, so those are my thoughts. It doesn't look as bad mile by mile as it seems to feel overall, because I feel like that 32:05 number, you know, I'm not thrilled about it. I was hoping for something in the lines of like 31:30. I know that, you know, here, let's play with some numbers a little bit. If we get to 4.97, that's where, you know, AK technically is. That puts me at 31:50, which would be like a 9-second PR if we are going to play that game. But, you know, when I ran the Shamrock Shuffle in 2019, you know, I'm running on a road course, so I'm not getting exactly 8,000 meters. And after all, it's an 8K, not an 8,000. So, like, you know, I ran it for 5 miles, and the 5 miles is what it is. So this says 32:01 for 5 miles. This is telling me 32:05. I don't know why there's a difference there. But either way, it's pretty close to kind of where I was for my PR. And it feels like it's not a win, but I'm going to take it as a win because of the fact that other race was in race conditions. I was running in a very strong pack. And this time I'm out there just kind of running it by myself. So feeling okay about it. There's definitely some things I need to work on. I think that what I need to be doing is more, not time trials. I don't really want to be doing a lot more time trials. I'd like to race more with other people. That's something that I think I need to be doing more. I need to get into that kind of feeling of, I just need to know and touch kind of like that level of, not stress isn't the right word, fear isn't the right word, strain on the body, where I'm like, you know, 2.5 miles in and my body wants to be like, hey, let's stop. And I have to keep going. So like some of the things that I was using today was I was visualizing, like having like you guys along the course, you know, cheering for me, or having my family along the course cheering for me, or, you know, pretending mentally that I was in a pack and just like following someone ahead. So I was trying to do some of those things and like mentally recreate some of those, some of that environment. It's just, it wasn't this, maybe I need more practice at that. It just wasn't quite working for me. I feel like, you know, the alarm bells just start ringing in my brain once I start getting to that level of fatigue, because I don't normally get to that level of fatigue. And so like, I need to be able to push through it, like set it aside, like, okay, I hear you, I'll set it aside and just keep running forward. So that's kind of like the thing that I'd like to work on going forward. Like throughout the race, I was thinking about how I just started reading Steve Magnus's book, The Science of Running, and it's a very strange book so far. I'm in like the first chapter, and he references the idea of like, you know, the guillotine effect. So like when a person is decapitated, like their body might still move, or like chickens running with their heads cut off, like that phenomenon. And I was trying to think of like, all right, my head is telling me all these things, but I don't need my head to be able to run fast. So I kept in my mind, like the mantra was like head cut off. So it was a very strange thing, but in the moment it seemed to be working for me. And just the idea that I can push through despite some of these alarm bells that are ringing. I mean, I would interpret them to make sure, am I hurt? Is this pace wrong? You know, but like once I figured out like those things, I'm not hurt, the pace isn't wrong, then I just thought, you know what, I don't need my brain to be able to hold this pace. I just need my legs to go. So that's kind of like what I was thinking on. I need more practice at that. The other thing that I was thinking about is just making sure I was running pretty, and trying to focus on my running cues for like glute activation, pushing back through the heel, you know, like really pushing through and then driving the knee. But, you know, I found myself like, I would remind myself that, and then I would forget it right away, and I'd have to constantly keep reminding myself. So like, I need to get into a rhythm of like, how do I hold that level of focus for a longer period of times? And that's where I think either longer time trials or more frequent racing is probably going to be the answer to that. Something that you know, I hear about all the time when I've been kind of reading either reports about sports science or reading sports science articles, is the idea that, you know, when you get people to try and do some sort of test for like an experiment, to test like a new training technique, one of the things that the scientists typically have to like kind of look for and like account for is the fact that like it takes time to get good at doing a test. So if it's like, you know, a 30-minute threshold test, or if it's a VO2 max test, like the first time you do it, you're not going to be good at it. So like it may not accurately reflect like what you're maximally capable of doing. You have to kind of like understand the test first. So, you know, I got to understand racing a little bit better. That's like the main takeaway that I have for today. So that way I can then get good at racing. I'm really good at training, I think, but I need to get really good at racing too. So that'll be something that is a direction that I didn't think I'd go for 2021, but I think that's something that's going to happen. So you run, you race, and you learn. So that's where we're at. All right. If you have any questions about any of the stuff that I talked about today, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, or better yet, feel free to stop by the live stream that I do just about every day on YouTube, 3 p.m. Central Time. I'd love to talk about anything you guys like there. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs and your races, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?